The night carried a silence that was not natural. It was the kind of silence that pressed against the ears, too heavy, too still, like the world was holding its breath. A small village slept under a silver moon, roofs dusted with frost, chimneys breathing faint curls of smoke. But one house sat awake, its single candle burning against the darkness. Inside, a girl named Clara stood by the window, her fingers clutching the sill so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She was 21, with hair as dark as midnight, and eyes that always seemed to search for something just beyond reach. Tonight those eyes were restless. Clara had grown used to strange dreams that woke her in the middle of the night. Dreams of a forest she had never walked, of eyes glowing in the shadows, of a low voice whispering her name. But this time, she wasn't dreaming. She was wide awake, and she could feel it, that same unseen presence, lingering at the edge of the woods behind her home. She told herself it was foolish. Villagers always spoke of wolves that prowled too close to the fields, especially when the moon was full. Still, no animal had ever made her heart race the way it did now. No wolf's gaze had ever burned into her skin like fire. The cottage around her was plain, almost fragile in its simplicity. A worn table, 2 chairs, the kettle resting cold on the hearth. The kind of place where life passed slowly, one day tied to the next with chores and silence. From the outside, Clara's life looked ordinary, almost invisible, just a girl living on the edge of a forgotten village, helping her aunt gather herbs and tending to a garden that barely survived the frost. Yet even the villagers whispered about her. Some said she was too quiet, too watchful, too much like her mother had been before she disappeared. Others said Clara's eyes held secrets, that she was touched by something not entirely human. Clara pretended not to hear. She had grown used to living with the weight of things she didn't understand. But tonight was different. Tonight the weight pressed harder. The forest stretched out behind the house like a wall of shadows, tall pines standing guard against the night. The moonlight slipped between their branches, making silver pools on the ground. And in one of those pools, at the edge of her vision, she thought she saw movement. A shape, tall, still, watching. Her breath caught. She blinked, but the figure was gone. Clara pressed her palm to the glass, heart pounding. Perhaps it was only her imagination, shaped by the stories the elders loved to tell. They spoke of the Alpha King, a ruler who once commanded the wolves of the north, a creature of power, half man, half beast, cursed to walk in shadows. Some said he was long dead. Others whispered he still roamed under the moonlight, searching for something or someone he had lost. Clara always thought those were just stories. Until now. She stepped back from the window, but the feeling did not leave her. The air in the cottage had changed, heavier somehow, as though carrying an unseen gaze within its walls. The flame of the candle flickered violently, then steadied again, tall and thin. Clara's aunt stirred in the next room, her soft cough echoing through the wooden walls. Clara hesitated, wondering if she should wake her, but decided against it. What could she say? That shadows were watching her? That the night itself had eyes? Instead, she moved to the door, her bare feet brushing against the rough wooden floor. She opened it just a crack. Cold air rushed in, sharp enough to sting her lungs. The world outside looked the same, quiet, silver, untouched. Yet the silence pressed closer now, almost suffocating. The village lay at rest. No dogs barked, no owls cried. Even the wind seemed to hold still. Only the trees swayed faintly, whispering secrets she could not understand. Clara. The sound was barely more than a breath. She froze, every hair on her body rising. The voice came from the forest. Low, drawn out, familiar in a way that sent chills racing down her spine. She turned her head slowly, eyes straining toward the tree line. Nothing moved. No one stood there. Elara. This time it was stronger. Closer. Her heart thundered against her ribs. She should have slammed the door shut, locked it, and prayed for morning. But something inside her, something older, deeper than fear, pulled her forward. Her feet shifted onto the step. The cold earth bit at her toes. But she barely felt it. The trees seemed to lean toward her, stretching taller, darker, as if inviting her into their shadows. Elara. The third time. The voice was right at the edge of the clearing. Her breath came in short gasps. She searched the darkness, desperate to see who or what was calling her name. And then she saw them. 2 eyes, silver, burning like moonlight caught in glass. Elara's body locked in place. The eyes were too high to belong to any wolf, too steady to belong to any man. They did not blink, did not waver, only held her fast as though they had been waiting all this time. The forest around her seemed to fade. The world was only those eyes and her trembling body. A sharp ache bloomed in her chest, as if invisible threads were pulling her toward him, binding her with cords she could not see. The figure shifted, just enough for her to know it was real. Tall shoulders, the outline of a man, cloaked in shadow. But not just a man. Something else. Something older than the stones beneath her feet. The wind picked up at last, rushing through the trees with a low howl. The candle inside her home went out, leaving the cottage in darkness. And then he stepped forward. The moonlight touched him, and for a single heartbeat, Elara saw his face. Strong, sharp, too perfect to belong to this world. His skin was pale against the night, his eyes glowing brighter now, piercing through the cold air like blades. She stumbled backward, clutching the door frame. The figure did not move closer. He only watched her, silent, as though waiting for her to choose to run or to follow. And just as quickly as he had appeared, the clouds swallowed the moon, plunging the clearing into blackness. The eyes vanished. The presence broke away. But Elara knew one thing with certainty, a truth that wrapped around her like chains. Whoever or whatever stood in those woods was not a stranger. He knew her name, and he was not finished with her. The morning light should have brought comfort, but it didn't. When Elara opened her eyes, the world outside her window seemed pale, almost washed out. The frost on the fields glittered too sharply, like shards of glass. The forest beyond the garden stood too still, its branches heavy, drooping toward her cottage as if they wanted to reach inside. She told herself it had only been a dream, that the silver eyes she saw in the woods were tricks of the moon. Yet the memory lingered. She could still feel them on her skin, burning into her, refusing to let her go. Her aunt's voice broke the silence. Elara, fetch the water before the sun climbs too high. She rose quickly, brushing the unease from her face, and tied her cloak around her shoulders. The ordinary tasks of the day were supposed to steady her filling buckets at the stream, feeding the chickens, gathering herbs from the brittle garden. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. The air carried a weight she could not name. At the stream, Elara crouched down, dipping her bucket into the cold water. The surface rippled, catching her reflection. For a moment she saw her own face, but then it shifted. Her reflection's eyes glowed faintly silver. She gasped, splashing water across her cloak. The image vanished as quickly as it came. Only her pale, tired face looked back now. She pressed her lips together, refusing to let fear take root. Perhaps it was the lack of sleep, Perhaps she was losing her mind. Alara. The whisper brushed past her ear. So close she spun around. But the bank was empty. Only trees and frost. Only silence. Her bucket slipped from her hands, the water spilling back into the stream. She wanted to run home, but her feet would not move. Alara. This time the voice came from the trees, soft and deep, as though the forest itself was speaking. She clutched her cloak tighter, forcing herself to stand tall. "Who's there?" she demanded, though her voice shook Dot no answer. Only the slow rustle of leaves. Though no wind stirred Dot, she returned to the cottage. Her bucket half filled, her hands trembling. Her aunt, a thin woman with sharp eyes, looked at her closely. "You've been wandering too near the forest," her aunt muttered. "It's not safe there. Not for you." Alara paused. "Why not for me?" Her aunt looked away, busying herself with the herbs on the table. "The woods remember blood. They keep secrets no one should disturb." It was not the first time her aunt spoke in riddles, but today the words carried a strange weight. Alara wanted to press her, to ask what she truly meant, but the fear in the older woman's face stopped her. Instead, Alara returned to her chores, though each task felt hollow, fragile, like she was pretending to live a life that no longer fit her. Later that day, she walked to the village market with a basket of herbs. The path was crowded with familiar faces, but people watched her differently now. Their eyes lingered too long, whispers curling behind her back. "That girl again. Strange, isn't she? She was at the woods last night. I heard she calls to the shadows." She kept her head down, heart heavy. The villagers had always gossiped, but this felt sharper, more dangerous. Almost as though they knew something she didn't. An old man, bent with age, stopped her near the bread stall. His eyes were cloudy, yet they fixed on her with startling clarity. "Beware the moon," he rasped, clutching her wrist with surprising strength. "It binds what should never be bound." Alara froze. "What do you mean?" But the man only shook his head, releasing her as quickly as he had grabbed her. He shuffled away, leaving her with the echo of his words, and the stares of others pressing down on her. By the time she returned home, the sky had darkened again. Her aunt was asleep, her breath shallow but steady. Alara lit a small lamp and sat by the window, basket of unsold herbs still in her lap. Her eyes drifted toward the forest. At first, nothing stirred. The trees stood motionless, the ground pale with frost. But then a flicker, a shadow slipping between trunks. She pressed her face to the glass, straining to see. It wasn't an animal. The shape was too tall, the movement too controlled. Her chest tightened as the figure paused at the edge of the clearing, half hidden in the mist. The silver eyes were there again, brighter now, burning through the fog. Alara's breath fogged the glass. She whispered to herself, "No, it can't be real." But it was. The figure stepped closer, just enough for her to see the outline of broad shoulders, the dark cloak brushing against his legs. He was watching her again, silent, unyielding. She tore herself away from the window, heart racing. The room suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in. She grabbed the lamp and set it on the table, its flame shaking wildly. "Alara," the voice came again inside the cottage. Her blood turned to ice. She spun, scanning the shadows of the room. No one was there. The door was bolted, the windows shut. Yet the voice was unmistakable, curling through the air like smoke. She stumbled backward, knocking the chair to the ground. "Alara." This time it was closer, as if whispered directly against her ear. Her hands shook, the lamp nearly slipping from her grip. She pressed her back to the wall, breathing fast, heart thundering so loudly she thought it might shatter her chest. And then all at once the voice was gone. Silence returned, but it was not comforting. It was heavier, thicker, alive. Alara crept to the window again, desperate to know if the figure was still there. But the clearing was empty now, the forest silent as if nothing had ever moved within it. The flame of her lamp flickered, nearly going out. She pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering to herself, "You're only imagining it. You're only tired. Nothing's there." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Something was there. Something had been waiting for her in the woods. Something had found a way inside her home, inside her name. And deep down, beneath the fear, a more dangerous thought crept in. What if it wasn't a threat at all? What if it was calling her? That night, Alara lay awake, unable to close her eyes. Each creak of the cottage made her flinch. Each brush of wind against the shutters sounded like footsteps. She kept her aunt's old knife under her pillow, though she knew it would be useless against whatever hunted her. She tried to listen for the whispers, but the night remained painfully silent. Too silent. And then, just as her eyes began to grow heavy, a sound rose from the forest. Not a whisper this time. A howl. Low. Long. Echoing across the hills. It was no ordinary wolf's cry. It was deeper, older, filled with longing and command. It rattled through the bones of the cottage, through the walls of her chest, until she felt it vibrating in her very soul. Alara sat up sharply, hands gripping the blanket. The howl faded into silence, but the air still trembled with its memory. And in that silence, she knew whatever waited in the woods was moving closer. Closer to her. Closer to the truth. The howl still lingered in Alara's chest when morning came. She moved through her day like a shadow, her mind drifting back again and again to the voice that had called her name, to the eyes that had burned from the edge of the forest. Her aunt noticed her distraction. "You're pale," she muttered, setting a bowl of broth in front of her. "Dreams again?" Alara only nodded, though she knew it wasn't a dream. She hadn't slept enough to dream. The night had been long and sharp, filled with the echo of that howl. Her aunt's eyes narrowed. "Stay away from the woods. Promise me," Alara whispered. "I promise." But promises made in daylight often broke in the dark. That evening, when the last light slipped behind the hills, Alara found herself standing near the tree line. The air was cold, her breath curling into the dusk. She told herself she had come for herbs, for berries, for something ordinary, but her basket hung empty at her side. The forest loomed before her, dark and endless. The silence was thick, but not empty. She could feel it again, that presence, watching her, waiting for her. "Alara." The voice curled through the trees, low and steady, not cruel, not kind. Her heart leapt out. She should have run. She should have turned back to her cottage and locked the door. But her feet carried her forward, step by step, until the shadows swallowed her. The deeper she went, the sharper the air became, filled with the scent of pine and something else, something wild, metallic, like storm-soaked earth. The hairs on her arms rose, and then she saw him. He stood between two ancient pines, half shadow, half moonlight. Tall, broad-shouldered, his presence too large for the forest, too strong for the night to contain. His hair was dark as the branches above, his skin pale against the silver glow, and his eyes, those same silver eyes, pierced straight through her. For a long moment, neither moved. "You came," he said softly, as if he had been waiting all his life for this moment. Alara's lips parted, but no sound came. She should have demanded answers, but her voice betrayed her. caught between fear and something she could not name. He stepped closer, each movement graceful, controlled. There was power in the way he walked, power in every line of his body. Yet his gaze never left her, and within that silver fire she saw something unexpected sorrow. "Who are you?" she finally managed, her voice a trembling whisper. His expression tightened, almost like a wound reopening. "A name won't change what I am." The words sent a shiver down her spine. She forced herself to stand tall. "You've been following me. You've been in my dreams. Why?" His lips curved, not quite a smile. "Because you are mine." The words struck like thunder. Her breath caught, her basket slipping from her hands, forgotten among the roots. "I don't even know you," she protested, though the bond she felt in her chest told her otherwise. Her heart hammered as if it recognized him, as if it had always known him. The stranger moved closer still, and the moonlight revealed more of his face. His jaw was strong, his mouth set in lines both hard and beautiful. He looked carved from shadow and stone, yet alive with something fierce, untamed. Ilara's instinct screamed danger, yet she could not pull her gaze away. He was magnetic, every part of him commanding, pulling her like a tide. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured, his voice low, carrying weight. "This forest is not safe. Not for you." Her eyes narrowed. "And yet you call me here. You whisper my name." His gaze softened, just barely. "Because I could not stop myself." The silence between them pulsed like a living thing. Ilara's breath trembled in the cold air. She wanted to move back, but her body betrayed her, leaning forward instead. "What are you?" she asked, her voice almost breaking. He studied her for a long moment, his silver eyes glowing brighter, sharper. "The question is not what I am, Ilara. It is what you are to me." Her heart lurched. He reached out, as though to touch her cheek, but stopped just short of her skin. The air between them burned, hot and cold all at once. Her pulse roared in her ears. "You feel it too," he whispered. "The pull. The bond." Ilara closed her eyes for a heartbeat, because it was true. She did feel it, an invisible thread tying her to him, pulling tight every time she tried to deny it. When she opened her eyes again, his face was closer, his expression shadowed with something like hunger, but not the hunger of flesh. It was deeper, sharper, a hunger of the soul. "You're wrong," she whispered, though her voice lacked conviction. "This is madness." "Perhaps," he said, silver eyes never leaving hers. "But madness has chosen us both." Her knees weakened and she stepped back, desperate to break the spell of his gaze. The forest seemed to sigh around them, branches bending as if listening to their every word. "You shouldn't be near me," he said suddenly, his tone darker now. "Your world and mine cannot join. It will destroy you." "Then why?" she began, her voice sharp with confusion, with a strange ache in her chest. "Why do you keep calling me?" His jaw tightened. His silence was answer enough. A sound broke the night, a low growl from somewhere deep in the woods. Ilara startled, turning toward the darkness, but he stepped in front of her instantly, his body shielding hers. The change in him was terrifying. His shoulders stiffened, his head tilted, and for a second, she thought she saw his eyes flare brighter, his teeth sharper. The growl echoed once more, then faded into silence. He relaxed, but only slightly. "They're watching," he muttered. "It's not safe for you here." Ilara looked at him, her heart still racing. "Who's watching?" His gaze locked on hers, and the weight of it nearly crushed her. "Everyone." He turned as if to leave, but Ilara reached out without thinking, her hand brushing against his sleeve. Heat rushed through her fingers, startling her. His head snapped back toward her, his eyes blazing. The connection jolted them both, a spark alive in the air between them. For a heartbeat, she thought he might stay. For a heartbeat, she wanted him to. But then he pulled away, stepping back into the shadows. His face was unreadable now, hard as stone. "You'll know soon enough," he said, voice low, dangerous. "But when you do, you may wish you had never met me." And before she could speak, he was gone. The forest swallowed him, leaving only silence. Alara stood frozen, her hand still tingling where it had touched him. Her body trembled, not from cold but from the force of something she could not name. Fear and longing twisted together in her chest, pulling her in two directions at once. She looked at the empty woods, her breath sharp in the night air. She should have felt safe now that he was gone. But she didn't. She only felt the absence of his eyes, and that absence left her more uneasy than his presence ever had. The morning after her encounter in the woods, Elora tried to return to her ordinary life. She rose with the pale dawn, fetched water, tended the fire, and swept the small cottage. Her hands moved through each task, but her mind was elsewhere, back in the forest, back with him. The stranger's words echoed inside her. "Because you are mine." She told herself it was foolish, that she should forget him, but the thought clung like a burr she could not shake off. Worse still, the village seemed to sense her distraction. When she carried herbs to market, eyes followed her more sharply than ever. Women whispered, men frowned, and children pointed before being hushed away. Something in her had changed, and everyone could see it. That night, the dreams returned. She was running through the forest, her bare feet pounding the earth, branches whipping at her arms. Silver light flooded the trees, chasing her, pulling her forward. She should have been afraid, but instead she felt. Called Dot, and then in the dream, he appeared. The stranger. His hand reached for hers, his eyes glowing brighter than the moon. When their fingers touched, fire surged through her body, burning and binding her in one breath. She woke gasping, her sheets tangled, her skin damp with sweat. Her aunt stirred in the next room, but Alara stayed silent, pressing her hands to her chest as if she could calm the pounding of her heart. Sleep would not return. She sat by the window until dawn, the memory of his touch lingering even though it had only been a dream. Strange things began happening after that Dot when she went to the stream. The water rose higher than it should, swirling and foaming as though stirred by invisible hands. Once, when she bent down to collect it, the current whispered her name. When she walked the market path, birds fell silent all at once, watching her with black, unblinking eyes. When she carried herbs to a villager's door, an old woman slammed it shut in her face, muttering, "Marked. She's marked." Alara's skin crawled. She wanted to deny it, to push the strangeness away, but she couldn't. The world she had always known was bending, cracking, letting something else slip through. One evening, as the sky darkened, she sat with her aunt by the fire. The older woman's hands shook as she mended a cloak, her eyes avoiding Alara's. "Aunt," Alara said quietly, "what do they mean when they say I'm marked?" The needle stilled in her aunt's hands. Silence stretched long before she spoke. "Some people carry a shadow on their soul," she said at last, her voice thin. "It draws things to them, things that should not be near." Elara's breath caught. "And you think I carry one?" Her aunt did not answer. She only kept sewing, though her hands trembled so badly the stitches pulled crooked. Alara leaned back, staring into the fire. The flames hissed and crackled, but for a moment, just a moment, She thought she saw silver eyes burning deep within them. The next day, Alara decided to avoid the woods entirely. She stayed close to the village, busying herself with chores until her muscles ached. She told herself she would not go near the trees, would not listen for whispers, would not search for eyes that should not exist, that destiny does not bend to promises at dusk. As she carried herbs across the field, the wind shifted. The air grew colder, sharper. She froze, her basket clutched tight. From the corner of her vision, she saw a shadow dart between the trees. Too fast, too tall. Her heart pounded. She forced herself to keep walking. Alara. Her steps faltered. The voice was not in her ears this time, it was in her chest, vibrating through her bones. She stumbled, nearly dropping the basket. No, she whispered to herself. I will not answer. I will not. A sudden crash split the silence. The ground shook beneath her feet. From the woods came a growl, low and rumbling, so deep the earth itself seemed to echo it. Her blood turned cold. She ran. Her legs carried her across the field, the basket falling forgotten into the grass. The cottage's light flickered ahead, her only refuge, but the growl followed. Louder. Closer. Her breath tore in her throat as she reached the door, fumbling with the latch. She burst inside and slammed it shut, bolting it with shaking hands. Her aunt startled awake in her chair, eyes wide with fear. What happened? She demanded. Alara couldn't speak. She could only stand there, chest heaving, as the sound grew louder outside the walls. Heavy footsteps circled the cottage. The wood creaked. The windows rattled, the air filled with the sharp scent of pine and iron. Her aunt grabbed her wrist, whispering urgently, "Do not open the door, no matter what you hear." Alara nodded, though her whole body trembled. The growls stopped suddenly. Silence fell, but it was worse than the noise. The night seemed to lean against the walls, listening, waiting. And then 3 sharp knocks. Alara froze. Her aunt's grip tightened. Again. The knocks came, slow, heavy, as though something massive stood at their door. Alara. The voice was unmistakable, deep, steady. The same one that had whispered her name in dreams, the same one that had burned through the forest air. Her aunt shook her head violently. "Don't answer," she hissed. "Don't even breathe." Alara's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. The voice came again, stronger this time. Alara. Every fibre of her being screamed to obey her aunt, to hide, to stay silent. But another part of her, deeper, older, beyond reason, ached to answer. The sound of his voice pulled at her like a thread, woven into her very soul. Her fingers twitched toward the latch. Her aunt gasped, pulling her back. "No!" The knocks grew louder. The walls shook. And then the door shuddered as something struck it hard from outside. Alara's scream caught in her throat. Her aunt clutched her tight, eyes wide with terror. The world she had always known had ended. The shadow was no longer at the edge of the woods. It was here, at her door. The night stretched long and restless. The knocks faded after a time, the growls swallowed by silence, but Alara did not sleep. She sat by the cold hearth, her aunt keeping watch beside her, both of them listening for the smallest sound outside. By dawn, the forest was quiet again, as though nothing had happened. But Alara knew better. Something had changed. The shadow had not vanished. It had stepped closer. The following day, Alara went to fetch water at the stream. She told herself she should avoid the woods, but her feet carried her there all the same. The village paths felt narrow, suffocating. The stares of her neighbors burned hotter with every passing hour. Out here, at least she could breathe. She knelt by the stream, filling her jug. The water rippled, catching the morning light like silver. And then without warning she felt it. A presence. Her heart skipped. She turned. He stood across the water. The stranger. He was not hidden in shadows now. He stepped into the light, and she saw him fully for the first time. His height was striking, his shoulders broad beneath a dark cloak. His hair was black as night, his skin pale as frost, and his eyes, those impossible silver eyes, shone with a light that did not belong to this world. Alara's breath caught. Every instinct screamed she should run. Yet she could not move. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "And yet, you waited for me," he said softly. The words made her chest tighten. She wanted to deny it, but it was true. She had come because she hoped he would find her. "Who are you?" she asked. He tilted his head, watching her as though weighing his answer. "Someone who has searched for you longer than you can imagine." The way he said it sent a shiver down her spine. His voice was calm, but beneath it lay something raw, something aching. "I don't know you," she said. His lips curved faintly. "Your heart does." She shook her head, clutching the jug close. "You frighten me." "I know," he said, stepping closer. The air thickened, every sound of the forest fading until only his voice remained. "And yet you don't turn away." She wanted to argue, but she couldn't. His presence was a storm, yet she found herself leaning into it. "Why me?" she whispered. His silver eyes softened. "Because you are mine." The words echoed like they had in her dreams. Alara's breath shuddered. It felt wrong, dangerous, but also true in some secret place inside her. Days passed, and he began to appear often. In the clearing, by the stream, at the edge of the fields. Always at a distance, as though respecting some invisible boundary. They spoke in stolen moments. He never gave his name. He never stepped inside the village. But his words drew her in. He asked about her dreams, her fears, her lonely nights in the cottage. He listened when no one else had. And in return, he shared small pieces of himself, how he lived in the shadows, how the world feared what it did not understand, how some bonds were written before birth and could not be broken. Alara told herself she should resist, but her heart betrayed her. Each time she saw him, the pull grew stronger. It was in his gestures, too. The way he leaned closer when she spoke, as though her words were more precious than air. The way his eyes softened when he caught her smile. The way his hand once brushed hers when she bent to pick a fallen branch, sending fire racing through her skin. It was forbidden. She knew it. The village would call her cursed. Her aunt would beg her to stop. But how could she turn away from something that felt like destiny itself? One evening, as the sun sank low, they met at the stream again. The world glowed in shades of gold and violet, the water shimmering like glass. "Do you believe in fate, Alara?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. "I don't know. I used to think life was simple. Work, survive, grow old. But since you came..." She trailed off, unable to finish. He stepped closer. So close she could see the strange silver flecks in his eyes, glowing even in the fading light. "Since I came." Her voice trembled. "Everything feels different." He lifted his hand, as though to touch her face, then stopped, his fingers hovering just shy of her skin. "You don't know how long I've waited for you," he whispered. Alara's heart thundered. Every breath between them felt like a spark waiting to ignite. She closed her eyes. torn between leaning forward and pulling away. But before she could choose, a sound shattered the moment. A sharp snap echoed from the trees. Alara's eyes flew open. The stranger's expression changed instantly, from tender to alert, his jaw tightening. His gaze flicked toward the woods, and in a flash his posture shifted. "Alara," he said urgently, "go home." "What is it?" she asked, her stomach dropping. "Go," he repeated, his voice low and commanding. She stepped back, fear clawing at her chest. That she couldn't look away from him. Something was happening. Something she wasn't meant to see. The trees shook. Branches cracked. A shadow leapt from the darkness. Elar. A gasp. It was a wolf. But not like any wolf she had ever seen. Its size dwarfed any animal she knew, its shoulders nearly as tall as her chest. Its fur black as midnight, its eyes burning with wild, unnatural fire. The beast growled, teeth bared, the sound rattling through her bones. She froze, terror locking her limbs. And then the stranger moved. Not away from the wolf, but toward it. His cloak fell, his body twisting with a force that defied nature. His hands curled, his shoulders snapped, his eyes blazed silver brighter than before. Alara stumbled back, her jug crashing to the ground. Her breath caught in her throat as the impossible truth unfolded before her. The man she had spoken to, the one who had haunted her dreams and claimed her as his own. He was no man at all. He was one of them. Werewolf! Alara could not move. She could not breathe. The man she had spoken with in whispers and stolen moments was no longer a man. His body shifted with violent cracks and tearing sounds, bones twisting beneath skin, muscles stretching as though pulled by unseen claws. His cloak ripped apart, falling in tatters around him. In his place stood a creature both terrible and magnificent. His frame was massive, covered in dark fur that shimmered faintly in the dying light. His face was no longer human, but a wolf's, fierce, noble, frightening. Silver eyes burned from the beast's skull, the same eyes she had stared into so many times before. The truth hit her like a blow. He was the shadow in the forest. He was the one who whispered her name. He was the reason the village called her marked. The other wolf, the black-furred, monster with fire in its eyes, snarled and lunged. Its jaws snapped, teeth flashing. Alara stumbled backward, her hands shaking, her breath shallow. She should have run. She should have screamed. But her body refused to obey. The silver-eyed wolf, the one she had once thought was only a stranger, roared. The sound shook the ground. He leapt forward, colliding with the black beast. They fought with savage power. Claws raked, teeth tore, growls filled the night like thunder. Trees cracked beneath their weight as they slammed into the earth again and again. Alara pressed her back against a tree, eyes wide, unable to look away. The stranger no, the wolf moved with wild grace. Every strike was precise, every motion filled with raw fury. Yet there was something different in him than in the other. His strength did not feel mindless. It felt controlled. Still, it was brutal, terrifying, unreal. At last, with a bone-shaking snarl, the silver-eyed wolf threw his enemy to the ground. The black beast whimpered, its fiery eyes dimming as it scrambled into the shadows and vanished. Silence fell. Alara stood frozen, her body trembling. Her breath came in shallow gasps. The wolf turned to face her. His silver eyes glowed in the dark, piercing, unblinking. For a moment, neither moved. Then slowly, so slowly, his form began to change again. Bones cracked, fur receded, muscles shifted, until once more he stood before her as a man, bare-chested, his breath heavy, his body marked with claw wounds. But his eyes, the same silver eyes locked on hers. "Elara," he said softly. His voice was rough, strained. "You weren't supposed to see this." Her lips parted, but no words came. "I wanted to wait," he continued, taking a step closer, "to tell you when you were ready. But now—" He stopped, searching her face. "Now you know." Elara shook her head, stumbling back. You're not human." His jaw tightened. "Not entirely." Her chest tightened with fear. Yet beneath it pulsed something else. Fascination. Wonder. The same pull she had felt since the first time. She saw him now burned brighter, sharper. "What are you?" She whispered. He hesitated, then answered in a voice heavy with regret. "A wolf bound by blood. A king by birth. Cursed by destiny." The words chilled her. "A king?" He nodded slowly. "The Alpha King. The leader of my kind." "And you?" His gaze softened, aching. "You are my mate." Alara's heart stopped. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible. I'm just a girl. I live in a cottage." You are more," he said firmly. "I felt it the moment I saw you. The bond is written in our blood. It cannot be broken." She shook her head violently. "You're lying. This is some trick. Elara," he said again, stepping closer. "You felt it too. The dreams. The fire in your chest when I'm near. You know this is real." Her breath shuddered. She had felt it. She couldn't deny it. But everything in her screamed that this was wrong. "Why me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why are you doing this to me?" His face softened with sorrow. "Because fate chose you. And fate is cruel." Her knees weakened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to run. She wanted to do both at once. The bond between them pulled tight like a chain, invisible but unyielding. And then she remembered the other wolf, the one with fire in its eyes. What was that thing? She asked, her voice trembling. His eyes darkened. "An enemy. One of those who would see me destroyed. And they will come for you too, now that you are marked." Alara's chest constricted. "Then this is your fault. If you had left me alone, none of this would have happened." His expression flickered, pained. "I tried," he said, "but I couldn't stay away." For a long moment they stared at each other. Fear and longing warred inside her. She could see it in his face too, the torment of wanting her close, but knowing the danger it carried. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know if I can trust you." The words cut like a blade. His silver eyes dimmed, his jaw tightening. "I understand," he said quietly. "I've given you reason to doubt. But whether you trust me or not, you are bound to me. That bond will not break." Alara's hands shook. She felt trapped, as though the world itself had closed around her. He reached out, almost touching her cheek. But at the last moment, she pulled away. The hurt in his eyes was sharp, but he masked it quickly. "I'll prove myself to you," he said softly. "Even if it takes everything I am." Alara turned, her vision blurring with tears. "I don't want a king. I don't want a curse. I just want my life back." And before he could answer, she fled, running through the trees. Heart pounding, breath breaking. Behind her, she thought she heard him whisper her name, filled with sorrow. But she didn't look back. For the first time since meeting him, fear outweighed the fire, and mistrust, sharp as a blade, slipped between them like a shadow. Alara tried to stay away. She filled her days with endless tasks, grinding herbs, sweeping the floors, fetching water, mending clothes until her fingers ached. Her aunt watched her with worried eyes but asked no questions. The village still whispered, louder now, their stares sharper than knives. But none of it silenced the fire in her chest. None of it dimmed the memory of silver eyes glowing in the night. She told herself she hated him. She told herself she was afraid. But late at night, when she lay awake in her small bed, her body betrayed her. Her heart beat faster at the thought of him. Her dreams burned with his voice. And every morning, she woke with the taste of sorrow on her lips. The danger grew as well. Shadows lingered at the edge of the fields. Strange howls echoed closer than before, their cries twisting the air with menace. Villagers spoke of livestock vanishing, of claw marks carved into doors. Fear spread like wildfire, and through it all, Elara knew this was because of her, because she had been marked. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Elara carried wood to the cottage. She froze when she saw him standing there, waiting. The Alpha King. He did not hide this time. He stood in the open, tall and unshaken, though the fading light caught the scars across his chest where claws had torn him. Her breath caught. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice a whisper. "And yet," he replied, his tone low and steady. "You hoped I would be." Her chest tightened. He was right, and that truth frightened her more than his presence. "Why do you keep following me?" she demanded, though her voice trembled. "Because I cannot let you go," he said simply. "The bond does not weaken with distance. It grows stronger." She shook her head. "You don't understand. The village already fears me. If they see you, they would call me a monster," he finished. His silver eyes met hers. They would be right. But even monsters love. The word struck her like a blow. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. For a long moment, silence lay between them. The air grew heavy, thick with things unsaid. Finally, she whispered, "You frighten me." "I know," he said gently, "and I would never harm you. But others will. My enemies have already found this place. The Black Wolf was only the first. More will come." Her blood ran cold. "Because of me. Because of us," he corrected. "They will use you to reach me. That is why I must stay near." Elara wrapped her arms around herself. "I never asked for this. No one asks for destiny," he said, his voice deep with sorrow. "But it does not care. It binds us whether we wish it or not." The following nights, he lingered at the edge of the forest. He did not enter the cottage, nor step too close. But she felt him there, watching, guarding and slowly. Despite herself, she stopped running from him. They spoke in hushed tones, their words carrying across the quiet night. He told her of his past, of battles fought, of brothers lost, of a kingdom hidden deep in shadow. He confessed that though he wore the crown of wolves, he carried a curse that made him feared even among his own kind. "You see me as strong," he said one night, "but strength comes with a price. Every bond I've known has ended in blood." And yet, his silver eyes met hers, fierce and fragile at once. "I cannot stop myself from wanting you." Elara's breath shuddered. She should have turned away, but she couldn't. His words cut through her fear, stirring something inside her she had tried so hard to bury. Danger pressed closer. One morning, Elara found the fields torn apart, deep claw marks carved into the soil. That night, howls circled the village louder than before, until the air itself shook with their hunger. Her aunt clutched her hand, whispering prayers, while Elara stared into the dark, knowing those cries were meant for her. The Alpha King appeared again, his face grave. "They are closing in. I can fight them, but not alone." And if you remain unclaimed, they will try to take you. Her heart pounded. Unclaimed? He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. To stand at my side as mate is the only shield strong enough to keep them from you. Her chest tightened, torn between terror and longing. And if I refuse? His jaw clenched. Then they will come, and I will kill every one of them, even if it costs me my life. But I cannot promise to keep you untouched by their claws. The words sent chills through her. He was asking her to choose, not just him, but a fate tied to him forever. The bond between them grew heavier each day, pulling her closer no matter how she fought. And yet mistrust lingered. Every time she saw the wolf in his eyes, she wondered, how much of him was man, and how much beast? One night, when the moon hung full and bright, he came again. This time, he stepped close, so close she could feel the warmth of him. "Elara," he said, his voice raw, "you are my forbidden's mate. My blood calls to yours. You can deny it, but the bond will not die. It will only burn stronger until it consumes us both." Her heart raced. His hand hovered near hers, not touching, but close enough to make her tremble. "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered. He leaned closer, his silver eyes glowing like fire. "Then trust the bond." Before she could answer, the sound of snapping branches split the night. Elara gasped, turning. From the forest, shadows emerged, 3 pairs of burning eyes, wolves larger and darker than the first. Their growls rumbled like thunder, their fangs glinting in the moonlight. The Alpha King stepped in front of her instantly, his body tense, his voice low and commanding. "Stay behind me." Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. She knew if she stayed, blood would spill. If she ran, she would be torn apart. And through the terror, the truth became clear: she had no path left untouched by him. Destiny had forced her to this edge. Now she had to choose. Would she pull away, clinging to fear and mistrust, or surrender to the bond and step willingly into his shadowed world? The air in the village grew heavy after that night in the woods. Elara walked as if the ground beneath her carried secrets she could no longer ignore. Every step echoed with whispers she could not explain, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer whenever she passed. She had thought the danger was only Kellen's world, but now something inside her stirred too, like a storm waiting to break. She tried to return to her daily life, tending to the herbs in her garden, helping her aunt at the apothecary, but nothing felt the same. The herbs wilted too quickly in her hands. Customers sometimes stared at her, as if they sensed something unusual, then quickly looked away. Even the village children, who used to greet her warmly, hesitated before stepping closer. Elara told herself she was imagining it. But when she passed the old churchyard, the bells rang though no wind stirred them. And when she dreamed, she saw not only Kellen's eyes, but also visions of a woman with her face, standing in a crown of silver light, surrounded by wolves bowing low at her feet. She woke each morning drenched in sweat, her heart racing. One evening her Aunt Morella called her into the kitchen. The room smelled of dried lavender and burning cedar, but Elara could tell something was wrong. Morella's hands trembled as she held out a small wooden box, carved with symbols Elara did not recognize. "It is time you know," Morella whispered. Elara frowned. "Know what?" Morella's eyes glistened with a sadness that seemed older than her years. "Your blood is not ordinary, child. You are not only mine to raise. Your mother, my sister, carried a secret she swore never to reveal. But it is no longer safe to keep it hidden." Elara froze, her pulse quickening. She had asked about her parents before, but Morella had always brushed away the questions with vague answers. Now the silence broke, and the truth pressed forward like a flood. She was loved by one of them, Mirella said. Her voice trembled on the last word. Not just any werewolf and alpha of the royal line. Your father. The room seemed to sway. Elara clutched the edge of the table, her breath catching. That's not possible, my father. He was a traveler. A man from the East. That's what you told me. It was a lie meant to protect you. Mirella's voice cracked. Your father was no ordinary man. He belonged to the blood of kings, the same blood that runs through Kaelin. The name burned in the air between them. Elara's knees weakened, but she forced herself to stay upright. Pieces of her life, her strange dreams, the way the forest seemed alive around her, the way Kaelin had looked at her, as if he already knew her soul, all began to make sense. But she could not accept it. You mean to tell me I am one of them? You are more than that, Mirella whispered, pressing the box into her hands. You were bound to a prophecy, one foretold before you were even born. Elara opened the box with shaking fingers. Inside lay a silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon, its edges glowing faintly as if touched by unseen fire. The moment her skin brushed against it, a sharp jolt coursed through her veins, almost knocking her backward. Her vision blurred, and in the haze she saw wolves circling her, howling under a blood-red moon. When the vision cleared, she gasped, clutching the pendant tight. What does this mean? Mirella looked at her with sorrow. It means the night you met Kaelin was not chance. The two of you were tied long before. The prophecy says the child of wolf and mortal blood will either bring peace to the clans or destroy them all. And that child is you. Elara shook her head, her heart pounding. She wanted to run, to scream, to deny everything. But deep inside she felt a terrible recognition. The pendant was not foreign, it was familiar, as though it had waited for her hand. Later that night she wandered into the woods, the pendant heavy against her chest. The forest no longer frightened her. Instead, it seemed to bend toward her, the trees whispering in voices she could almost understand. And there, in the clearing where she had first seen Kaelin, she found him waiting. His silver eyes glowed in the moonlight, and his presence filled the air with both danger and safety. You know now, he said softly, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Elara's breath caught. You knew all along. Kellen's jaw tightened. Yes, from the moment I saw you. Your scent, your soul. It carried the blood of my line. You are not only my mate, you are the lost heir of the Alpha King. The words slammed into her chest. She wanted to step forward, but fear rooted her in place. Why didn't you tell me? Because once you knew, there would be no turning back. His eyes darkened with sorrow. And now you carry a choice heavier than any I've ever known. You can embrace what you are, or you can deny it. But either way, danger will come. The clans already whisper of your return. And not all wish you to live. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a sound like distant growls. Elara clutched the pendant tighter, her heart torn between the world she had always known and the world waiting to claim her. Her voice broke when she finally whispered, Who am I, really? Kaelin stepped closer, his hand trembling as he reached out but did not touch her. His words were both gentle and sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. You are mine, he said, and you are their salvation, or their ruin. Elara's breath hitched. She wanted to believe in him, in the warmth she felt in his presence. Yet the prophecy's shadow loomed over her, threatening to turn that warmth into fire. And then, as the moon broke free from the clouds, she heard it a chorus of howls, rising from the distance, closer than they had ever been. Her blood ran cold, but the forest no longer whispered. It roared, and Elara knew her secret was no longer hidden. The howls in the forest did not fade. They grew louder, closer, as if the night itself carried the sound on its breath. Elara stood frozen in the clearing, her heart thundering in her chest. Kellen's body tensed, his sharp gaze fixed on the shadows. "They've found us," he said in a low growl. "Who?" Elara whispered, clutching the silver pendant until it cut into her palm. "The rogues," Caleb answered. "Those who defy the crown. They've hunted me for years. And now they hunt you." The trees shook as dark figures emerged, men with glowing eyes and movements too swift to be human. Their teeth glinted in the moonlight, and the hunger in their stares made Elara's blood run cold. One stepped forward, taller than the rest, his face scarred and cruel. "The lost heir," he hissed, his gaze sliding over Elara like a blade. "The prophecy's child. If we bring her blood to the earth, the clans will bow to no king." Elara's knees weakened. She tried to step back, but Kalen moved in front of her, his presence fierce, his body trembling with the power he barely held back. "You'll not touch her," Kalen snarled. His voice was sharp as steel. The rogue leader smiled, showing his teeth. "You would protect her, Alpha, even if it means your death." Kellen's eyes glowed silver. Especially then. The fight erupted like fire in the night. Wolves lunged from the shadows, their snarls splitting the silence. Kalen shifted with a shuddering growl, his body rippling into the form of a massive wolf, silver fur glowing like moonlight. Elara gasped, the sight both terrifying and beautiful. The rogues attacked, their bodies twisting into monstrous wolves with black fur and blood-red eyes. The clearing became chaos, claws against claws, teeth snapping, snarls echoing through the forest. Elara pressed herself against a tree, watching in horror. Kalen moved with terrifying grace, each strike deliberate, each leap full of power. But he was outnumbered. For every rogue he struck down, 2 more came at him. Her pendant burned against her chest, pulsing with light. For a moment she thought she heard a voice within her mind. Help him. But how? She was no wolf. She was no warrior. The rogue leader did not fight. He stood at the edge, watching with a cruel smile. Then his eyes shifted to Elara. Slowly, he began to walk toward her. "Stay back," Elara cried, her voice breaking. "Your blood is power," the rogue whispered. "Give it freely, and I may let him live." Her body froze, torn between terror and rage. And then Kalen, bleeding and staggering, noticed the rogue moving toward her. His growl split the night as he threw himself at the leader. The two collided with a sound like thunder, teeth sinking into flesh, claws raking fur. Elara screamed, unable to look away. The fight was brutal. Kellen's strength was unmatched, but he was weakening, blood matting his fur. The rogue leader's grin widened, his eyes gleaming with the promise of victory. And then, with one swift strike, the rogue's claws tore across Kellen's side. He fell back, stumbling, his silver light dimming. "No!" Elara cried, rushing forward without thinking. The pendant blazed with sudden heat, burning against her chest. Light burst from it, spreading across the clearing like fire. The rogues howled in pain, shielding their eyes. The leader staggered back, his sneer twisting into shock. Elara's hands shook as she held the pendant out, though she had no idea how or why it was happening. The light wrapped around Kalen, lifting him slightly, sealing his wounds with threads of silver fire. When the glow dimmed, Kalen struggled to his feet, his body still trembling but alive. His silver eyes locked on hers, filled with both awe and something heavier fear. The rogues hissed, retreating into the shadows. But the leader lingered, his eyes burning with hatred. This isn't over, he spat. The prophecy will not save you. It will destroy you both. Then he vanished into the dark, leaving the forest echoing with his words. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Kalen shifted back into his human form, his chest heaving, his skin streaked with blood and sweat. Alara rushed to him, her hands trembling as she touched his face. She whispered. His eyes searched hers, haunted. What did you do, Alara? I don't know, she said, holding the glowing pendant. It just happened. Kellen's jaw tightened. That was no accident. The power in your blood. It's awakening. Her stomach twisted. Is that what the rogues want? My blood? They want control, he said bitterly. And if they cannot control you, they will kill you. Alara swallowed hard, fear closing around her. She had saved Kalen, but the cost of her secret was now clear. She was no longer safe. Neither of them were. The journey back to the village was quiet. Kalen kept his distance, his expression unreadable. When they reached her aunt's house, Morella rushed out, horror filling her eyes at the sight of Kellen's wounds. What happened? She demanded. The rogues, Kalen said flatly. They know of her now. Morella paled, gripping Alara's arm. Then the whispers are true. The prophecy is already in motion. Alara pulled away, her voice trembling. You knew about this, didn't you? All of it. Morella looked away, guilt clouding her face. I wanted to protect you. Alara's chest ached with anger and betrayal. Everyone around her seemed to know more than she did Kalen, Morella, even the rogues. She was left in the dark, expected to accept a fate she didn't choose. Protect me? She whispered, tears burning her eyes. Or control me? Morella flinched at the words. That night, Alara couldn't sleep. Kalen stood guard outside, his silhouette a shadow in the moonlight. She watched him through the window, her heart aching. She had saved his life, yet now a wall seemed to stand between them. Her blood, her fate, it was not just hers anymore. It was a weapon, a crown, a curse dot as she lay in bed. She remembered the rogue leader's words. The prophecy will not save you. It will destroy you both. The fear in her heart twisted into something colder. Doubt. What if he was right? The next morning, the village bell rang in alarm. Alara rushed outside, her breath catching. Smoke rose from the edge of the woods. Wolves, dozens of them, were moving through the trees toward the village. But this time, it was not Kalen they came for. It was her and Kalen, still weak from the fight, was the only one standing between her and the darkness. The smoke thickened above the treetops, turning the sky the color of ash. Alara stood in the village square, her chest tight as the cries of fear spread from door to door. The wolves moved at the forest's edge, their glowing eyes watching, waiting. Kalen stood before her, his body tense, his wounds not fully healed from the night before. He looked like a man ready to die if it meant protecting her. They're coming for you, he said, his voice heavy. And I won't let them take you. Alara's Aunt Morella grabbed her arm. You can't stay here. You'll bring death to us all. You must run. Alara shook her head, torn between terror and rage. Run where? They'll find me no matter where I go. You don't understand, Morella said, her eyes full of something that felt like desperation. Your blood, if spilled here, will curse this land forever. You must leave before it's too late. Kalen snarled, pulling Alara back against him. No, she stays with me. She is under my protection. Morella's eyes hardened. And how many lives will you sacrifice to keep her at your side, Alpha? How much blood will stain her name? The argument was cut short by a howl so loud it shook the ground. The wolves broke from the trees, shadows flooding into the village. The villagers screamed, scattering, some running for cover, others grabbing makeshift weapons. Kalen pushed Ilara behind him. His silver eyes glowed, his voice sharp. Stay close. No matter what happens, don't let go. The first wave of rogues struck, teeth and claws flashing in the firelight. Kalen shifted mid-leap, his form exploding into a silver wolf, his roar echoing through the night. He tore through the attackers with feral power, but more poured in, overwhelming even his strength. Ilara clutched the pendant, praying it would answer her again. But it only pulsed faintly, as if mocking her helplessness. Then, through the chaos, the rogue leader appeared. His scarred face twisted with triumph as he raised his claws toward Kalen. "You fight well, Alpha," he sneered. "But this ends tonight." Ilara's breath caught as Kalen and the leader clashed, their movements too fast for her eyes to follow. The ground shook with their strikes, their growls shaking the air. Around them, the village burned, cries of terror mixing with the smell of smoke and blood. Ilara wanted to help, but her body froze. Then Mirella's hand grabbed her arm again, yanking her back toward the alley. "Come with me," Mirella hissed. "We can't trust him." Ilara's heart twisted. "What are you saying?" Mirella's eyes blazed with urgency. "He is not saving you, Ilara, he is using you. Can't you see? You are his mate, yes, but also his crown. With you, he claims the prophecy. With you, he rules every clan. Without you, he is nothing." Ilara's breath shook. She looked back at Kalen, fighting with his life, his silver fur stained with blood. His eyes, when they flicked to hers, even in the madness, were filled with something more than power. Something raw yet doubt wormed its way inside her chest. Is she right? Am I only a key for him? The battle grew worse. Wolves closed in from all sides. Kalen faltered, his wounds slowing him. The rogue leader pinned him against the ground, claws at his throat. "Ilara!" Kalen roared, his voice breaking through the chaos. "Choose." Her heart stopped. Choose? Between what? Between him or freedom? The pendant burned, light spilling between her fingers, and she heard the voice again. Choose. Love or safety? Truth or denial? Mirella pulled harder. "Come with me. We can escape. We can hide." But Kellen's eyes locked on hers, desperate, pleading. "Stay with me." Ilara's chest heaved. Her soul screamed with the weight of the choice. If she stayed, she risked death, power, betrayal. If she ran, she abandoned him to die. Tears blurred her vision. Her body trembled as she lifted the pendant, the light growing brighter, almost blinding. The world seemed to pause. The fire, the screams, the battle, it all faded into silence. Only Kellen's voice reached her, raw and broken. "Ilara, please." She made her choice. The light exploded from her pendant, shaking the earth. Wolves were thrown back, the fire itself bending away from the silver blaze. The rogue leader staggered, his claws burning, his eyes wide in fury. But in the blinding glow, Ilara felt a hand rip her away Mirella's hand. "No." Ilara screamed, trying to fight free, but the world spun around her. The pendant's light dimmed, the battle vanished, and in its place came darkness. When her vision cleared, she was no longer in the village. The air was damp, the walls cold stone. She was in a hidden chamber, deep underground. Mirella stood before her, eyes full of grim determination. "You chose wrong," her aunt whispered. And now I must save you from yourself. Alara's chest heaved. Where is Kaelin? What have you done? Mirella's face twisted with sorrow. I could not let you give yourself to him. He is not the answer. He is the beginning of the end. No. Alara cried, rushing forward, but chains of silver sprang from the walls, wrapping around her wrists. She struggled, tears burning her eyes, but the chains only tightened. Mirella's hands shook as she touched the pendant at Alara's chest. This power is not for him. It is not for love. It is for survival. If I must keep you locked away until the prophecy breaks, then so be it. Alara's heart shattered. Her own blood, her own family betraying her. Kaelin's roar echoed faintly in her mind. Distant, fading dot, and in that moment, she realized the truth. She was no longer choosing between love and safety. She was already caught between betrayal and destiny. The last thing she saw before the chamber, door sealed shut, was Mirella's face, wet with tears, and the last thing she heard was Kaelin's voice, far away but burning in her soul. I will find you, no matter the cost. The cold of the chamber seeped into Alara's bones. She pulled against the silver chains until her wrists bled, but they held fast, their cruel bite humming with strange energy. Each breath was heavy, as though the walls pressed closer with every heartbeat. Her aunt's betrayal cut deeper than the iron. Mirella had been her protector, her comfort when the world was cruel. Now she was her captor. Mirella entered with a lantern, its dim light flickering across the stone walls. Her face looked older, shadows hollowing her cheeks. You must understand, she whispered. I do this for you, for all of us. If Kaelin binds you to him, the prophecy will come true, and the clans will fall into war. Alara's voice shook with anger. You lied to me my whole life. You kept my bloodline a secret. And now you lock me in chains? That's not protection. That's fear. Mirella's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't falter. I lost my sister to this curse. I will not lose you too. Alara turned her face away, her chest burning with betrayal and grief. She doesn't see me. She only sees the prophecy dot above ground. The village was still in flames. Kaelin fought with every last ounce of strength, tearing through the rogues, his silver fur stained crimson. But no matter how many he struck down, the scarred leader remained. The rogue Alpha's voice rang out over the battlefield. Your mate is gone, Kaelin. Stolen by her own blood. You cannot save her. Kaelin's roar split the night, filled with rage and sorrow. His claws slashed, his teeth snapped, but his heart twisted with helplessness. He could feel Alara through their bond, her fear, her pain, her desperate struggle. Yet she was slipping further away, buried behind walls he could not see. I will not lose her, Kaelin growled, his silver eyes burning like fire. Not to you. Not to anyone. The rogue Alpha lunged, and their battle shook the ground. Power against power, destiny against defiance. Back in the chamber, Ilana's pendant pulsed again. Warmth spread through her chest, reaching the chains that bound her. She gasped, feeling the silver tremble. Do you feel that? She whispered, her voice shaking. It's not a curse. It's power. It's mine. Mirella stepped back, her face pale. No, you mustn't. But the pendant's light exploded, flooding the chamber with silver fire. The chains shattered, falling to the ground in glowing shards. Alara staggered forward, her breath ragged, her wrists bleeding but free. She lifted her eyes to Mirella. Her aunt stood frozen, torn between awe and fear. Alara, Mirella whispered. Don't you see? This is why I had to keep you hidden. You're stronger than him. Stronger than all of them. You are the prophecy. Alara shook her head, tears in her eyes. I never wanted power. I just wanted to belong. But if I must choose, then I will not choose fear. Not yours, not theirs. With that she turned and ran, the pendant lighting her path as she burst into the night. The battlefield opened before her like a nightmare. Fire devoured homes. Wolves clashed in the streets, their snarls mixing with human screams. And in the center, Kaelin fought the scarred rogue, their forms a blur of silver and black. Elara! Kellen's voice tore from his throat when he saw her, his silver eyes widening with relief and fury. The rogue Alpha sneered. There she is, the crown jewel. Elara's pendant blazed brighter, answering the chaos. Her blood boiled with energy she did not understand. The earth seemed to hum under her feet. The prophecy's weight pressed down on her, heavy and merciless. Kaelin staggered, the rogue's claws sinking deep into his shoulder. Blood sprayed across the ground. Elara's scream tore through the night as she ran toward them, the light of her pendant flaring like a second moon. The rogue Alpha turned, his grin cruel. So be it. If her blood ends this war, I will take it now. He lunged at Elara, claws outstretched. But Kaelin moved faster. With a roar that shook the village, he threw himself between them. The claws meant for Elara sank deep into his chest. Elara's world shattered. No! She screamed, catching Kaelin as he fell. His blood spilled warm against her hands, his breath shallow. His silver eyes locked on hers, filled with pain and love. Don't cry, little flame, he whispered. You are stronger than this, stronger than me. Her tears fell onto his skin, mixing with his blood. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Kellen's hand rose weakly, brushing her cheek. You are my mate, my forbiddance, my destiny. Remember that, even if I fall. Then his hand dropped, his body heavy in her arms. Rage and grief exploded inside her, too great for words. The pendant blazed like fire, the light spreading across her veins until her whole body glowed with silver flame. The rogue Alpha stepped back, eyes wide. What are you? Elara stood, her body trembling with power, Kellen's blood still on her hands. I am the prophecy, and I am done running. With a scream that tore from her soul, she released the light. It shot out in a wave, striking the rogues like a storm. Wolves howled in agony as the fire seared their bodies, driving them back into the darkness. The scarred Alpha staggered, his snarl twisted with hatred and fear. This isn't over. He spat, retreating into the burning woods. The prophecy will eat you alive, and when it does, I will return. Then he was gone, leaving silence behind. Elara collapsed beside Kaelin, her strength fading. His body was still, his breath shallow. She pressed her hands over his wound, sobbing. Please, she whispered. Don't leave me. Not after everything. For a moment, she thought she felt nothing. Then faintly his chest rose. His pulse beat weakly against her hand. He was alive. But barely her tears fell again as she bent over him, the pendant dimming against her chest. The battle was won, but the cost was unbearable. The villagers emerged from hiding, their faces pale, their homes ruined. Mirella stood among them, her eyes shining with tears. For the first time, she looked at Elara not with fear, but with awe. You saved us, she whispered. Elara lifted her face, her voice breaking. Not yet. Not if he dies. The prophecy's chains weighed heavier than ever. Victory had come, but with it came loss too deep to bear. And as the night fell quiet, Elara realized her greatest fear had come true. Love, no matter how powerful, could not escape destiny's price. The fires smouldered through the night, leaving the village scarred and broken. Homes were blackened shells, the air thick with ash, and the cries of the wounded echoed like a mournful song. Yet for Elara, the world narrowed to the still figure in her arms. Kellen's chest rose faintly, each breath a fragile thread binding him to life. His blood soaked her hands, staining her skin, marking her heart. She pressed her forehead to his, whispering his name over and over, as though her voice could anchor him to the world dot around them. The villagers began to gather. Some bowed their heads in respect, others murmured in awe. They had seen the light that poured from Elara, the silver fire that had driven back the rogues. They no longer looked at her with suspicion or fear. Instead, they looked at her as if she was both miracle and mystery. But Elara did not care about prophecy or destiny. All she cared about was Kaelin. "Stay with me," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "You promised I was your mate. You can't break that now." His eyes fluttered open, silver dim but still alive. His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "I told you, little flame, you are my destiny. Even death will not keep me from you." Her heart broke and healed in the same moment. He was alive, but only barely. Morella pushed through the crowd, her face pale and weary. For once, there was no anger in her eyes, no judgment. She knelt beside Elara, trembling. "The pendant," she said softly. "It carries the blood of your ancestors. It can heal, but only if you give it freely." Elara clutched the glowing stone against her chest. "What do you mean?" Morella's eyes filled with tears. "It will take from you your strength, your life's fire. But it may be enough to save him." Elara's breath caught. Her heart raced, torn between love and fear. If she gave too much, would there be anything left of her? Kellen's hand weakly touched hers, shaking his head. "No, I won't let you trade your life for mine." She kissed his hand, tears wetting his skin. "You gave me freedom when I thought I was cursed. You gave me love when I thought I was unworthy. I will not lose you, Kaelin. Not now. Not ever." Before he could protest, she pressed the pendant to his wound. The stone blazed with light, brighter than before, filling the ruins with silver fire. The villagers shielded their eyes. Kaelin gasped, his body arching as the power surged into him. Elara felt the energy leaving her chest, rushing out of her like water spilling from a broken jar. It hurt. Oh, it hurt. But she did not let go. She poured her love, her strength, her very soul into him. The bond between them flared, not just mate to mate, but heart to heart. Then, slowly, the light faded. The wound on Kellen's chest closed, leaving only a scar. His breath grew steady, his silver eyes bright once more. But Elara collapsed, her body limp, her strength gone. Kaelin caught her, panic flooding his chest. "Elara, no, don't leave me now." Her eyes fluttered open, heavy with exhaustion. She smiled faintly. "I'm still here. Just tired." He held her close, trembling with relief. "Never do that again. I'd rather die 1,000 times than lose you." She reached up, her hand brushing his cheek. "But you won't die. Not while I still breathe." He kissed her hand, his tears falling freely. For the first time, the Alpha King wept not for weakness, but for love. Days passed. The village rebuilt slowly, though scars remained. Many lives had been lost, and grief hung heavy in the air. Yet from the ashes, something new began to grow. The villagers no longer whispered about Elara as if she were cursed. They approached her with respect, sometimes even with hope. Children touched her hands as if she carried light itself. Morella stayed at a distance, ashamed and silent. But one night, Elara found her by the river. staring at the dark water. "You hate me for what I did," Morella whispered. Elara shook her head gently. "I don't hate you. You were afraid. You thought you were protecting me. But fear cannot guide us anymore." Tears slid down Morella's cheeks. For the first time, Elara embraced her aunt not as a captor or betrayer, but as the broken woman who had once raised her with love. Kaelin recovered slowly, his scar a reminder of how close death had come. But he never left Elara's side. At night, when she woke from dreams filled with fire and prophecy, he would hold her and whisper, "We made it through the darkness, together." And yet shadows lingered. The rogue Alpha had escaped, vowing to return. The prophecy still weighed heavy on their shoulders. Elara knew the battle was not truly over, but she also knew one truth stronger than any curse. Love had already changed destiny once. It could do so again. Weeks later, under the light of a full moon, the villagers gathered in the square. Kaelin stood tall, his silver eyes shining, his hand clasping Elara's. He addressed his people, his voice strong. "For years, we feared prophecy. We feared curses and bloodlines. But tonight, we see the truth. Elara is not a curse. She is our hope. She is my mate, my equal, my queen." Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd, but no one protested. Many even bowed their heads in respect. Elara's chest swelled with both fear and pride. She had spent her life hiding, doubting, running. But now, standing beside Kaelin, she felt something new, belonging. Later, as the moon bathed the ruins in silver, Elara and Kaelin stood together at the edge of the forest. "Do you ever wonder," she whispered, "what would have happened if we had never met?" Kaelin turned to her, his expression soft. "Then I would still be an alpha with no heart, and you would still be a girl running from shadows. We saved each other, Elara. That was always the prophecy." She leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. The steady beat of his heart was the most beautiful sound she had ever known. For the first time in her life, she felt peace, but peace did not mean the end. The scarred rogue still lived. The prophecy's last words remained unfinished. Danger would come again. Yet as the night wind stirred the trees, Elara knew she no longer faced it alone. She had found love in the most forbidden place. She had faced betrayal, fear, and blood. And she had survived. Her reflection was no longer of a frightened girl. It was of a woman forged in fire, bound by love, and strong enough to carry the weight of destiny. She lifted her eyes to the moon and whispered, "Whatever comes next, I am ready." And Kaelin, standing beside her, tightened his grip on her hand. Together they faced the dawn.